Hi everybody. This is going to be a short little video just showing how to do a little bit of maintenance on your torch. I know a lot of different glass artists use different methods and have different timings on how to clean their torch or how often they clean their torch. But this is just basically my 2 cents worth, so don't rag on me if it's not what you do. And I just want to give a little shout out to everybody who's helped with my GoFundMe account. I know I've been going through a terrible ordeal, which I probably will be for probably at least several years to come. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody who's helped me along with that. It should hopefully help me within about the next year worth of medical bills, as long as I don't get slammed with the last July hospital bill. But just an FYI, thanks so much to everybody out there. So let's get on to this video and hopefully it'll help some of you guys out. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm going to show you how I use and how I clean my little Mega Miner torch. So I'm using a Bethlehem Bravo right now, but this is a single stage Mega Miner which has one oxygen valve. The oxygen always attaches to either silver or a green knob, and then you have a propane valve or natural gas which connects to a red knob, and the propane is opposite screw on than the oxygen, so you don't get them confused. So just an FYI there, you want to make sure your torch is hooked up correctly. Then you want to make sure you clamp down your torch. You don't want to accidentally knock your torch off your bench. So it's always good to have, either if you don't bolt it in, to actually clamp it down. And so a lot of people have these little either brass or copper, I believe this one's a copper wire brush. And it's really great to clean the head of your torch. Some glass artists do this every single time they turn on and shut off their torch. They will wipe it down and scrub it with one of these brushes. I find, just doing it when it looks dirty or like once a week is good enough for me. But basically, turning on your torch, you always want to turn on the propane or the natural gas first. Your oxygen needs to be off when you start it. So you want to make sure your oxygen is off, and then you slowly turn your oxygen valve on to get your torch up to the flame you want. And now I have a nice neutral flame here. I know it's kind of hard to see, but the candles on the edges are like a bright white, but they're pretty sharp. They're not fuzzy edges. And then you have a nice neutral flame. And it's about a 1/2 inch or even a little less than a 1/2 inch wide. I can turn up my torch a little bit more and get a wider flame. And so you could see right there, it gets a lot wider. There's a lot more heat radius coming out of it because there is a little bit of angle on these Mega Miners. And then you could also turn it way down and get a pinpoint flame for a very fine point. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of how I melt some glass with this. Even though it's a very small flame, it is an oxygen propane mix, which is what I'm using, and it does get the glass hot pretty quickly. So if you're working on a hothead or a similar small torch like that, this is going to make a huge difference. You're going to melt the glass 2 or 3 times quicker with one of these surface mix torches. And as you see, I have a 7mm rod of turquoise here, and it's melting down pretty quickly, and I'm going to get about a 1/2 inch or so size ball on the end of this rod of glass pretty quick. It doesn't take very long. This is all real time. I'm not speeding it up or anything, and I got a big ball of glass already. So you really build up the glass quickly, even though this is a very small looking flame. It does do a lot of heat penetration. So I'm just going to flatten it a little bit here just to show you how I do that. And then I'll just pull out a little twisty. I'll just heat both sides, get the chill marks out of it, and pull a little twisty out just to show you a little bit more of a heat base. I'm going to get that paddle on the end a little floppy flip it back and forth until it starts stabilizing. And then I'll just pull out a little twisty. So you could have a little twisty. I could put a loop on the end, and it could be a little pendant, whatever you want to make out of it. But just to show you how quickly this little torch, even though it looks very, very small of a flame, it will actually heat your glass pretty quickly and make quick work, especially of beadwork. So this is soft glass I'm using here. Beadwork, boro, it would take a hell of a lot longer, I'll tell you that much, but for beadwork, it's great. And then another thing I wanted to show you here is that, so this is the rod of turquoise, and I'm just cooling it down using the little marver I got on the top there, cooling it down, and you could see it's like all the same color. It's pretty much that turquoise. It's not all the way cool, so it's not totally the same color, but when it's cool it will be. And I just wanted to show you that if I have a reducing flame, which I'm getting here, see, you're going to start getting marks on that. If you start getting marks on your turquoise and some other colors like purples might actually start turning silver, you have a reducing flame, and so you need to adjust your flame because it's not neutral, and you're going to get scumming like this on some of your clears, on your turquoises, on some purples. You'll get some silver coming to the surface, so you'll have all that issue. So one way to check to make sure you have the right mixture. So you always want to turn off your oxygen first and then your propane. And now I'm going to clean this again. And I opened up, you might have noticed just a second ago, I opened up my oxygen again. So I have it blowing out. So it's actually, when I scrub this down, it's actually blowing out any debris, so it's not falling back inside the torch. And so that's a good idea too, to have your oxygen blowing out when you clean it. Another thing you should get with your little torches, whatever kind of torch you get usually, is you get one of these little pin vices. And this is to actually clean the little tiny heads that are in the surface of your torch. And this is especially if you get like glass stuck in there. But if you notice your torch getting really dirty, you could stick that little pin in there and you could very gently, I'm very gently tapping that down, because there's some kind of debris in that tube that's stopping that pin from going all the way down. And so I'm just very gently, you don't want to force this thing. You never want to force it. But you can go in and out. If you can do it with your hand by itself, that's fine. But otherwise, a very gentle tap. And I know some of you might say, oh no, you shouldn't do that. But I've never had a problem with it, and I've been doing this 23 years. And so I'm very gentle with that tap. And you want to make sure my oxygen is still open. So if any debris is getting loosened in there, it will actually start coming out because the oxygen is forcing it out. Now I have to turn my oxygen back off before I start my torch again. You want to make sure you do that, or else you're going to pop your torch. But now, as you see, I'm going to bang it with just my little paddle, and you can see there's like, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little bit of debris coming out, little sparks coming out. And that means the debris is coming out, the carbon buildup is coming out. And so just to show you a little bit of how to clean your torch and keep it clean, and hopefully that'll help some of you guys keep your torches running nice and good forever. I have some torches that I bought in the 90s that are still doing great. So I hope this helps some of you. Thanks so much for watching.